So that really hit me, existential. What is this world? That's their one shot in this life. And from the minute they're born, this is like this. So these questions all came together. That time I was studying philosophy, really literary theory at Yale, but philosophy. And I was really engaged in this question. What is the matter of life and death? Especially that time when I was at Yale, New Haven was the 7th poorest city in America. And I would go to study philosophy every day. And we ate well, we had a great situation. And we were living in this city where there were kids who didn't have socks. Where you would walk past the houses of some of the places in the sort of the slum areas of New Haven. There were no windows in some of the houses in winter. And here we were going to study philosophy in these lecture halls, not unlike Columbia, which are heated 24 hours a day in winter. And there are people living right next door who don't have heat. So what is justice? What is truth? What is this world? So I had this very intense question. So even while I was having a great time and partying and doing everything, and I'd come down to New York a couple times, all our Ivy League buddies, we'd get together in New York on the weekends, sometimes in the 80s and early 90s and parties. But still, there was always this question, what is this? What is this world? What is truth? What is justice? What does it mean to be a human being? So at the time, I was believing a lot of what my religion that I inherited from my parents was teaching me, but at the same time, something inside was not satisfied with that answer. So I, at the time, was really inspired by the teachings of German philosophy. I was really, really, really into Nietzsche and Hegel and especially Schopenhauer. Schopenhauer was, for me, and still is, a great, 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 extraordinarily shocking teacher, as all great teachers are. And so I was really interested in Schopenhauer and answering this question through Schopenhauer's works. And I remember when I was reading Schopenhauer, he's very interesting. He was a very brutal kind of philosopher, very offensive to many people, but honest in that way. He was just pounding every philosophical system in the world. He'd bring it up for some sort of view, and he would immediately take it apart and show its weak points and how it was totally ignorant in some way or weak, maybe in the German sense of things. I looked at Schopenhauer and I was really struck by his intellectual honesty, but then he would always say something like, well, this philosophy's weak point is such and such and such, and this religion's weak point, and this and this and this. But then he would say, but there's some teaching in the world that really accords with my view, and that is called Buddhism. I didn't know anything about Buddhism at the time, but I was really struck that Schopenhauer, for all of his harshness, his brutal insight, was very affirming of these teachings from the East, Buddhism. So I started to read Buddhist teachings. And I was immediately struck that it was exactly the way I already thought in a lot of ways. Really a lot of ways that I had already imagined this situation to be. So I started to look into Buddhism. Now, as I said at the beginning, Buddhism is not It's not a field, it's not a study, it's not a thing in itself worth study. Any true religion is not that. And I know, being raised Christian, that even Jesus, his career, Jesus was always hitting the people around me who took their religion as a field of study itself. Jesus died early because he encouraged the people, he pushed the people around him to go inside. Yeah, the kingdom of heaven is within. The kingdom of heaven is inside, not some outside place. And that's where he really hit the scribes and the people who were at the time encouraging people to look to some outside salvation. He said, it's inside. As much as you love your sister or brother, so much you are like me. That's all. So it's not study. It's not a position. It's not analysis. It's merely being human. But how do we get there? How do we get there? That's a very important point. So in the West, in our tradition, we have the tradition of Socrates, where Socrates said, know thyself, know thyself, know thyself. Know thyself. Self-knowledge. Socrates, as some of you have studied, especially if you've gone undergrad to Columbia and you've done the Great Books course, you understand that Socrates didn't have a system of thought. Socrates pointed his students, the Socratic dialogue. He merely answered questions by asking them back to the student and revealing that the student already had the truth inside them. So Socrates used to say, you must understand yourself, you must understand yourself, you must understand yourself. Then one day a student said to him, teacher, you always say you must understand yourself. Do you understand yourself? And Socrates said, no. I don't know. I don't know. But I know this not knowing. I understand this not knowing. I am aware of this not knowing. That's that statement is the beginning of Western philosophy. I don't know, but I know that I don't know. I know this not knowing. So in our life, every day, we're taught to know something, know something, know something, know something, know something. You guys are taught to know about management, business, running things. Know something, know something. Your professors tell you all day, know this, know this, know this, know this, know this. I noticed when I was at Yale, we were taught to read this, read this, read this, read this, read this. I remember one day I was in the lecture room at the Harvard Divinity School, and the professor, one of the great professors of Western religion, I won't mention the name, though he is related to someone who used to teach at Union Theological Seminary, was teaching the good and the true and the absolute. The good is the absolute which comes from our sense of being and which connects us to other people. And I noticed I was sitting in the back of the lecture, and all of the students, we all had our notebooks open. Everyone is writing down exactly what he says. The good is that aspect of the absolute which connects to the other people. And then the teacher would say, and as Socrates said about the absolute, it is that. And everyone's and I thought to myself, wow, we're like robots. We take what they say, and we memorize it, and then we put it out, spit it out, and we get a good grade. So any kind of religion or philosophy is usually someone else's idea. Someone else's idea. But what is my true idea? What is my true idea? That's not taught much in school. So when I was after I graduated from the divinity school, I had the opportunity to meet this, actually it was before I graduated, but after I took a year off, actually. So I had a time to meet this great Zen master, this Korean Zen master. I went to him, and it was the first meeting, and I had this dialogue with him where I said, I understand this, I want to take Western philosophy and Eastern religion, I want to put them together, and I think we can make a new paradigm with some sort of like the teachings of Western philosophy, plus a little bit of Judeo-Christian thing, and I think Eastern philosophy, around and around and around. And he sat there looking at me like a frog, waiting for the fly. And I went on and on and on and on and on. And then he, out of nowhere, he shouted, "Who are you?" And this really struck me. I said, my name is Paul. He said, that's your body's name. Your mama gave you that name. Before you had that name, who are you? I don't care. That's your body's name. Who are you? And I said, I don't know. And he said, study that. You don't know you. Study that. So, studying that, that's Zen. That is Zen Buddhism. So anything after thinking, that's someone else's idea. Socrates' idea, Descartes' idea, Schopenhauer's idea, Buddha's idea, Jesus' idea, your professor's idea. When all of you were children, your parents taught you the sky is blue. But the sky never said, I am blue. Ever since your parents taught you the sky is blue, you've been going through this life saying, sky is blue, sky is blue, sky is blue, sky is blue. But the sky never said, yo, human being, I'm blue. So human beings make some idea, attach to that idea, and call that true knowledge. Who made that idea? Who thinks that idea? Who? Zen teaching points to that. So when you are thinking, your mind and my mind are different. Yeah, Christian thinking, Buddhist thinking, male thinking, female thinking, Korean thinking, American thinking, British thinking, French thinking, Indian thinking. When you are thinking, your mind and my mind are different. When you cut off all thinking, your mind and my mind are the same. That's because you're cutting off all thinking means before thinking. That place before thinking arises. Before thinking. Your before thinking mind is your substance. My before thinking mind is my substance. Your substance, my substance, this hand substance, this table, sky, cloud, stars, moon, earth, sound. It's all the same substance. So I have a question for you. You're all students. And don't believe anything I said just because I said it. If you keep a don't know mind before thinking, your mind, this hand, and this sound, are they the same or different? Come on. You guys didn't get into Columbia Business School for nothing. Your mind, this hand, and this sound, are they the same or different? Different. Oh, you say different. If you say different, I hit you 30 times. Because you're attached to opposites. If you say same, I also hit you 30 times. Because you're attached to sameness. If you don't say anything, I hit you 60 times. What can you do? No answer? What? I don't know. That's also, I hit you 30 times. If you open your mouth to call it something, it's a mistake. Your professors didn't teach you this, so you don't have an answer. That's a human being. Very interesting, very simple. This hand, this sound, and your mind, same or different? Same. Different. Both. Oh, you get really whacked. Open your mouth to calling it something, it's already a big mistake. You ask me. Ask me.